So we're here today with a Couple of Pointers podcast. We're lucky enough to have Angel Sandoval on with us. Angel, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. Excited to drop some nuggets. Let's do
We
it.
want to hear them. So for the sake of the audience, explain it like we five. What do you do?
I find gold, man, in rivers. I'm just kidding. No, but what that is we basically prospect for commercial cleaners. That's what our bread and butter is. So email, LinkedIn, cold call, anything to be able to get what you would consider a walkthrough, which would be, imagine like a demo, right? If we're talking tech, but this is a visit in person, looking at the building, and then
right. I love that because everyone's talking tech sales. I'm a big fan of old school business, service businesses, classic MSP, and how that translates to tech sales and how tech sales translates back to that. So how did you get into this?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've done tech sales, I've been in SaaS, but the way I got into this is basically with my business partner, James Harper. Actually used to be his sales coach, and then he got me out of tech and SaaS to join his sales agency. And then we had a couple of commercial cleaners within our clients. And then basically we just fell in love with the space, man. So now we have the Profitable Cleaner podcast. We've been doing it for 18 months. We own the best domains you can think of in the space because we're bringing basically what we know in tech and SaaS, and we're just bringing it into commercial cleaning.
I absolutely love that. So on that, what's something that used to work that just isn't working for you right now?
Something that used to work that doesn't work. I think it depends on like the industry. I'm gonna try to stick as much as I can to like tech and SaaS because I know that's who your people are listening. Sounds good. Sounds good. For me, what used to work that doesn't work anymore, again, and this is gonna be fully my opinion, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like tentative schedules. What do I mean by that? Or like tentative booking. I hear that when I hear live cold calling and tech so much, a lot of people are like, hey, why don't we put a placeholder for 1 p.m. in 7 days? I personally do not like when people do that because that's why your show rate is like 40, 50%. Our show rate with our team is 90%, but that's because I would rather not book it than get a kind of maybe possible opportunity. So personally, what doesn't work versus what works is a tentative appointment date versus an actual solid opportunity.
And I could completely see that, right? The tentative ways, just trying to get a foot in the door, but they were deliberately keeping that door shut for a reason. So unless you crush the reason and make it worth their while and them want to meet you,
100%.
You're always fighting an uphill battle there.
And I think it's also like a lie. I mean, let's be honest. I don't like when you hit the gong and we hear the recording and it's like, like did the prospect actually want this? Did the prospect actually was even intrigued, or was this just you using it for your own ego just to hit your numbers?
In our world, a gong is a meeting sat. Meeting booked is as, it's vapid. It doesn't exist until they're in the meeting.
Exactly. So don't do the whole like, I've even seen live where they're like, well, I got kind of like half a meeting. And it's like, what? Because it's a tentative accepted date. It's like, no, if you didn't get them to solidify the meeting, it's probably because they're not truly interested or you didn't do good. So might as well nurture it through email, send something of value, and then call back and then solidify the appointment. So that's what I would say.
Brilliant. Now, you were a sales trainer originally with James, and now you've transitioned that into running Day Porter. I assume sales training is still a large part of your job. What was the advice that you used to give 3-4 years ago that was a core piece of advice? And now that you've matured in the role a little bit, is it still the same advice you're giving today?
Beautiful question. And yes, I do some consulting right now. I work with 3 other companies with their sales floor. Yeah, man. The first one I would say is I used to just say it's all about, and this is going to get so much heat. It's all about the activity. I used to just say like, dude, pound the phone, work freaking hard. Now, man, now I'm like, I work smart. I actually never, in our team, we never expect them to hit 70 dials or whatever, nothing like that. We're trying to figure out how can I get the most viable opportunities and the less effort possible. So like the advice I used to give was you gotta like sheer hard work, oh my god, but not really. My fiance, she works for demand base. I don't see her do a lot of outbound as far as like cold call, but she's such a ninja in email that I'm jealous of how much less intense work, right? It's a smarter work versus just like pound the phone type of conversation. So those would be the 2 advice I would give.
Yeah, I get that. If you can increase conversion rates, if you can increase the quality and reduce activity, that's what you want, because ultimately that still means you can achieve more if you up activity. But when the only lever you have is increasing activity, that's just a ticket to burnout.
Exactly.
And there's all of the people that are saying no, right? You're just churning through your total addressable market, which we all know, particularly when you start getting into physical sales or less tech sales, you got to be hyper aware of your total addressable market because often you're quite defined by geography, by scope. So you need that
100%.
conversion right up there. But on that,
100%.
you've got these different channels, emails, calling, LinkedIn. You're doing all of those for Dayporter.
Yeah.
Which is your primary channel at the moment?
It depends. So actually, commercial cleaners hire us to do it for them, right?
Yeah.
Our best lead generation tool for Dayporter for like inbound commercial cleaners has been our podcast, right? So like that's our lead generation, number one commercial cleaning podcast. So it's like, cool. We get a lot of attention. We funnel them to us. We get our clients and then we do outbound for them. It depends, right? So like depending on the size of the cleaner, certain things work. So the smaller the target market that they want, like building size, easier it is to get through email. The bigger it is, the harder it is to get through email. And so this would take like a LinkedIn approach, like the big buildings. You start with LinkedIn, follow into a sequence of calling and email. The smaller ones, I'm just like sending emails, right, individually to them, boom, boom, because it's just easier.
Actually, more as well, a bigger total addressable market of small businesses. Right, so one of the questions, Angel, that we like to ask all of our guests is if you could employ a fictional character to do this job perfectly or to do your job perfectly, who would it be?
If I had to hire a fictional character to do my job perfectly or hire to like work with me, right?
Any genre of fictional character.
Oh, I have a few in mind, but I know that it has a lot to do with me personally. Okay, cool. I have two in mind, but I'm gonna I can only say
pick
one.
two.
Okay, now I'm gonna.
We make the rules here.
Pick two. Okay, good. So there's two. There's one obvious one that people have probably said. Mike Ross. I would pick Mike Ross from Suits. If you haven't seen specifically to hunt the bigger whales, if I had to sign a multi-million-dollar contract, it would be with all the research that he has been able to do, competition research. Like he's just really good at that. And then I would send them over to close the deal. I love Mike Ross from Suits. That would be like somebody I would want to employ to work hand in hand with me. The second one that I would he would be my sales trainer, and here we go, would actually be Poe from Kung Fu Panda.
This is getting interesting.
He's definitely my favorite cartoon, favorite kids movie, or favorite movie in general. The overall Kung Fu Panda thing, or Master Oogway, all that crew, like that would be a badass crew. They would be like my sales trainers. There's a lot of teachings within those movies that I actually deploy myself for my team and whenever I do consulting.
I think I watched that movie with my 6-year-old. I'm gonna have to read.
There's 3, so you gotta watch all 3. There's 3 of the movies, and the third one is awesome, right? Like one of the easier quotes that I love is like, if you only do what you know how to do now, you only be as good as you are now, right? Like it's little quotes like that change the game for me.
Brilliant. All right. What's something that you're currently struggling with, a challenge within your business that if you had a magic wand and could make disappear or have solved for you that you would want solved?
Oh man, what's one problem or one struggle we're currently having with our team that if we can solve, we would solve, right? I would be intrigued to learn from any fractional sales manager or fractional VP of sales companies and how they go and get clients and how they structure their payouts so that they can help more companies, because there's a lot of companies that have that need. The more we're in the space, the more we know that commercial cleaning companies need it, but we want to do right by them. So I wouldn't say it's like a struggle, but it's definitely a big question mark that's currently in our radar. How can we leverage our skill sets and our team and position it so it's a win-win for them and for us? And of course, there has to be like a system for that. So exactly, because commercial cleaning's profits are low as it is, so taking any margin from it is tough as it is. So like, how do you make it a win-win? What kind of systems do you have in place to set up a fractional CMO sales manager? That would be something interesting. If somebody's listening to this and has some answers to that would be super beneficial.
Absolutely. Like the classic of, we want to just make this a win-win. If you're getting a positive ROI and we're getting a positive ROI, this is net win-win. But people don't always look at it that way, right? They specifically comparing you to, say, employing a junior salesperson. So they've got this upper limit
100%.
in their mind of what they want to pay for the role, as opposed to broadly saying, well, if you bring in X, we're happy to give you Y.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to like bring X, give us Y. The question's, how would you even position that? I know there's some companies that are really successful at it. I haven't been able to crack the code myself.
All right. Well, that's a topic we're going to have to chew on here in a couple of pointers. One of the things I really admire about you, and I've actually watched some of your training, Angel. You might not know this, but when we were starting Pointer, James was a bit of a mentor. He was one step ahead of us in what he had started already. He's like, hey, why don't you just watch my sales trainer, Angel? We've recorded all of these looms for our team. Why don't we just invite you to our loom space and you can watch all of them? So what you don't know is I've actually watched all of your training, and that's part of why I have you here today.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, now you know.
you.
You speak a lot about mental models, mind frameworks, what you might call them. Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. I think it's pretty simple. Like, sales can look daunting, especially for some new people, right? And then you have like a split between leaders. Some leaders say like, I can develop anybody, and then some leaders say like, if you're not born with it, or if you're not ready to go super hard, like you can't make it. So like, every time I coach any team or I train any team, I like to set up like almost like a little rules or boxes that they can live in. I got the best advice, like Jordan Peterson, I think he says it. He's like, you can't really see somebody's creativity really come out unless you actually give them some rules, like some box that they can work off. So that way mentally they know, this is where I live. Now how do I make the most of where I'm at, right? And so like, for example, the first one, everybody always teaches on objections, right? You're gonna get shut down. You're gonna get these objections. It's all about being persistent and not letting it get to you. We're human beings, it's gonna get to us. So like, one of the things I always tell my team is, what is an objection? Let's understand the objection first. Like, what is an objection? It's not a smokescreen, it's not all that. An objection is basically like, Ricky thinks one way, Angel thinks one way. We think differently.
Mm-hmm.
An objection is, you have a thought, I have a thought. So in order to get past an objection, right, it's not about saying the good things. It's about, can I understand what Ricky is seeing? And then can I invite Ricky to sit next to me and look at what I'm seeing, so that we can get both perspectives and then we move across it, right? So like, that makes objections much less scary. It's not someone saying no or going against you. It's, oh shoot, my prospect thinks this way and I think this way. Oh, let's figure out what they're thinking and let's figure out if we can teach them what we're thinking.
That requires curiosity, empathy, like all the things that we discuss are fantastic attributes within sales, as opposed to the classic way of thinking, which is, I'm right, my prospect needs this, he just doesn't know it yet.
Exactly.
Let me force my opinion down there.
Exactly. You can't force your opinion into somebody that thinks differently. That doesn't make sense. The best way to get somebody to think differently is to first understand how they think, get in their head, right? And so that's why it's important to see it, right? Like, I always like to tell people like, hey man, I actually don't see it that way. Will you mind sharing with me how you got to that, how you got to that decision? Like, I would love to learn. Right? And then that puts you in a student mode. So like, that's the first one. The second framework I tell them is like, especially when you're outbound, like, cold calling is not about cold calling and booking the appointment. Cold calling is branding, it's marketing research, it's insight, it's making the appointment, of course, qualifying the leads. And then the other part, which I love the most, is they get thousands of calls or hundreds or 50 calls a day or whatever. How are you going to make their day? That's a rule that we always have. If you're going to call someone, if you're going to answer me, I don't care if you're pissed, I don't care if you're happy. How am I going to make you smile that day? If I can't make you smile on the other side of the phone, or make you at least go, that was a good call, then what's the point of booking the appointment, right?
Do you specifically try bringing humor?
That's me. Yes. That's because I'm a humorous guy. I love making people smile. I like making people laugh. But I think even something as simple as saying the words please and thank you and catching their name. So many people don't catch the gatekeeper's name, right? Like, I always catch the gatekeeper's name. If I get an email, I'll send an email and then I'll say, by the way, like, Martha, Angel, whoever the gatekeepers, was awesome. Great job at that hire. Like, things like that on that email. And I will copy the gatekeeper in there as well.
That's brilliant. That's
right. So like,
those are
why like, it makes feel good, right? Make them feel
absolutely
good.
And that's a great technique, because I guess it does depend on the size of the market and the company you're going to. But typically that gatekeeper, I don't even like calling them gatekeepers necessarily, because that kind of diminishes who they are for this company. Often the person sitting at the front desk, particularly in smaller businesses that you might be cleaning, they customer success, they customer support. They the person who's doing a host of administrative and team management. They're the one that's coordinating the team. Like, they have a lot of responsibility and often a lot of authority that's given to them within that company. It's not that old school receptionist, right? Like, plug a wire out of this switchboard and plug it into that switchboard 100%. And that's their job.
I think like that's why this is what I mean by frameworks. Like I love paying attention to the meaning of words. Like if you tell me something, I'm gonna study every little word you told me, and if it doesn't make sense, then I just know you're saying things, right? Not you, I mean in general.
trust me.
Receptionist versus gatekeeper. Like depend. Now my question to somebody is like, what depends? A gatekeeper, they keep somebody from getting across the gate. Okay, so then what kind of gate are they guarding? Because see, like I'm a faith. I believe in God and I love faith. If they're the gatekeeper to getting into heaven, there's no better job than gatekeeper. Does that make sense? Like, and so they have more power than we think. And so the question here is like, if you're calling, I don't mind calling them gatekeepers because they are literally the ones that have the keys to one of the biggest gates that you're trying to get into. So
in my mind,
they better be your friends.
In my mind, they're a decision maker. Like they're not the decision
100%.
maker on the holding the budget for the product we're trying to sell to them, but they're a decision maker. And their decision that they have to make is the original high level. Does this person add value to the person they want to talk to? Like, that's what they're trying to decide. Hey, I'm trying to protect the time and the energy and the attention of Mr. CFO. Mrs. CFO, I shouldn't have used gender there, the CFO. And this person has to make a decision, because if you cut out everyone from the CFO, well, you're not going to get access to the market. Like that, it's important to
100%.
be that filter to allow through value and try reduce distractions. So they are a decision maker
100%.
with a very important decision to me. And I'm going to treat them like a decision maker that they are.
100%. That's when people say like always be closing. Some people don't like that statement because they think of what's the movie? I can't remember. It's not Boiler Room. It's Glengarry Garen Ross, right? Like always be closing. But it's not really that. It's like you're closing them on a certain step, they're making a decision on a specific step. And so what can you do to do that, right? Again, if they answer me, I'm just trying to figure out how can I get them to smile? How can I get them when they think of Angel, they think of a good thing?
Mm-hmm.
And then how can I give them enough of those things to get them to pass me through?
Amazing.
Because if I ask you, like, why do people buy or why do people make decisions? I mean, why do people buy a lot of the times is because they feel like it. Not because you can present the best freaking case study, business case, and they might not be in the mood to buy. I think that people forget that. So my question is, how can I get this gatekeeper in a state where they want to pass me through to the right person, where they want to buy into what I'm telling them so that they can hand me over to somebody else with a good feeling? There's a difference between, hey, Mr. DM, hey, Mr. CEO, Mrs. CEO, Angel's on the line, versus, hey, I have this awesome person on the line. You should probably talk to him. Hey, let me make the introduction. Those are two different, let me get you to the decision maker, you know?
Sorry, man. Anyway,
Okay.
I'll ask you one last question to close it off. Hopefully, I'm fucking hoping in the back end of this, mate, that it can all be stitched together.
If it doesn't, we'll re-record, no worries.
I'm sorry, like, I don't know why I've been having so many issues. Like,
No worries, bro.
So, Angel, somebody wants to get hold of you. How can they do that?
Yeah, man. Best way is I'm super active on LinkedIn. So reach out to me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. Let me know that you heard me here. And yeah, we'll be able to connect. I'll say one more thing just real quick is, sales is a tough role. It's not a hard role. We're not construction workers. We're not astronauts. It's not that type of role. But it requires you to be in the right mental space at all times. You have to be present, right? Instead of presenting, you have to be present. There's a different, like most people present a demo, but they're not present during their demo, right? Those are two different things. So make sure that you are present every single day. You're not there to present, you're there to be present. So you can hear what they're saying and you can actually filter and navigate conversations to get people to make a decision that they wouldn't have made if you weren't there, which basically that's what closing is, right? Getting someone to make a decision that they wouldn't do otherwise on their own if you weren't there. So
that is one of the best quotes, and I think that one is going to stick with me for a long time to come.
Good, man. That's what having good mentors is. That comes from my mentor, Nicholas Barely, and it's amazing.
Fantastic. Well, it's been so good talking to you, and hopefully the people listening to this got a lot of tips out of it, and I'd love to chat to you again soon.
You got it. Thank you so much for having me, man. Later, brother.